It is a dogfight. It is a dirty game in retail. We, in the last 12 months, have done about $1.1 billion in retail sales for our brands. And that is on non-branded spend.
Just to tell people how crazy this is.
Walmart's advertising online retail media business did $4.4 billion in 2025 alone.
We are the only company in the United States that's official partners of every digital retailer in the US.
Trey, it's like what? Velocity, units sold per store per week. What else? Like, give us some high level.
Our business does two things. Drives your units per store per week up, and it is the most measured and highest enterprise value driving marketing across your whole organization.
You're almost bringing like D2C stuff like attribution, ROAS to a retail environment.
From this conversation, I'm starting to discover this stuff.
Our podcast is called What's Working.
What's working is GLP-1s have fundamentally shifted consumer buying intent. Even though you're not on a GLP-1, a lot of customers are now starting to eat like they're on a GLP-1.
In retail, like a lot of brands that wait until you're 50 mil, maybe retail makes more sense.
I think that most CPG businesses should not even think about retail until they get to at least $50 million digitally.
If you are thinking of going to CPG or launching, this is the episode to listen to.
It will literally make you rich.
Yo, what's going on? Shray, thank you for joining us on the What's Working podcast. Good to have you, man.
Thanks for having me, you guys.
So for a little bit of background, Shray is what I would call one of my CPG friends. Specifically, he runs what is probably one of the biggest agencies you've never heard of, Good Peeps. And what makes Shray really, really interesting is he's one of the best in the world at retail media, which is something a lot of people have still not heard about somehow, even though it's super incremental. But I think the best way to start is from the top. Shray, tell us about, like, how'd you get into Good Peeps? What did you do before? Yeah. What's your background?
Yeah, I'm going to try to not make this like a 20-minute episode by just my intro. But the simplest way to kind of talk about like how I got into the CPG space is basically like I used to be a fat boy. So I used to be like 290 pounds growing up when I was in high school. Parents' love language was food because they're Indian, and my mom made insane food that was just like laced with like butter and carbs. And so I thought that like eating Taco Bell cereal and like super fatty, high fat, high carb, low protein Indian food was like the key to success and health. But it just left me like super overweight. I had asthma, I had eczema, I had like terrible inflammation. I was pre-diabetic and I had sciatica. So like I had like every health problem you could ever think of. And it got to the point where like in college, I literally had so much inflammation in my body. I'd have to skip classes for weeks because I was bedridden. I like literally could not get out of bed without me having like a full on like just like I would like fall at the knees like onto the floor because I would just get this like shock through my system. And so all of my doctors were basically like, you're going to be on drugs for the rest of your life sort of a situation. And I was taking, every strong anti-inflammatory you could ever think of, which then also made me super depressed.
So
right?
how old are you? How old were you when this was happening?
I was 18.
Wow. So you were like this sick at 18.
At 18. And every doctor told me that forever I would be on medication for life and that there was nothing to do to fix it. And at the exact same time, I was a psychology major, but then the third day of school, my biochem professor called me fat in front of the student body, like in front of like 3,000 people. He was just like this other really big Indian guy that just like decided to share his opinion about me in front of the whole room. And I was like, thanks. And he was like, what are you studying? I was like, psychology. And he's like, that's for idiots. You should study something like real. And I was like, what do you suggest? He's like, biochem. And so in like the weirdest way, I ended up basically asking the guy after, if he could just mentor me and like help me with two things. One is like figure out my career because nobody cared enough to even like voice their opinion up until that point. But then two is turns out he actually ran the nutrition lab at our university specifically on dietary inflammation. And so he basically had me work under him and I learned everything about diet, disease, and inflammation. I became a full-on biochemist, actually like by trade, was like doing analytical biochemistry in, preventative dietary kind of research. And like through that whole process of learning everything, I kind of just like healed my whole body. So I lost 140 pounds in college. I got rid of my diabetes. I got rid of my sciatica. I got rid of every health problem that I had and was completely reversed. I felt amazing. And I got off of all of my medications. And so I was just pissed because I was like, great. Everybody was telling me I'm screwed for the rest of my life. And I feel unreal now. And so rather than just being like a normal pharmaceutical rep, like a good Indian doctor boy, like my parents wish I would have been, I was like, let me in like the most like hippy dippy way, like change how people like eat, drink, and think. Cause like that's what fixed me. And so that was like the story of like how I started my career of like being in CPG.
I like how he like totally like flamed you and you were like, I want you to be my mentor. But also at the same time, I guess he kind of had to, like, maybe not in front of like 3,000 people, but I guess he kind of had to do that to kind of shock you out of it because you were in such a bad place. But that's wild. So when you were getting to CPG, it was almost like in a better for you kind of
Necessity.
mindset. Okay.
Yeah, it was a necessity. And like, you guys also know this, like your best friends are the ones that give you constructive feedback. Yeah. He was one of the few people that actually decided to say it to my face. Whereas everybody else is like, oh my God, you lost 5 pounds. You look great. This guy was like, you're going to die. And
so, it's some real tough love, love. So
exactly.
You're now a biochem. You're like in your early 20s. I think I met you when you were like, what, 23?
23. I think I was working at Nugs or I was at Health Aid at that point.
And then before that, you had been at Chacha Matcha, right?
Yeah. So actually, even before that, after I lost a bunch of the weight, got really good at, I had this biochem degree. So I could talk about like supplements, diet, disease, nutrition, etc. And so one of my friends was like, hey, like you should just like get a sales job at GNC. And so my actual career started off in like one-to-one sales in GNC in Boston. Hardest crowd to go and convert off of. And so what kind of grew my like desire to want to be in e-com was kind of like my time at GNC where somebody would walk in, I would have to take a look at them, get an understanding of, you know, who they were, what they were looking for, why they were looking for what, and be able to sell to them, you know, specific products at our store. So like everybody has like their own way into marketing. My version of that was through sales, where I was like testing messaging, testing products, testing, et cetera, live on a one-to-one basis. And then after I spent my time there, I had actually like stolen a bunch of samples because I was like a broke college student. So I was like living off of free samples for my pre-workout. They found out about it and then they fired me. So I was like, all right, well,
I don't think that counts as stealing. I think that's just like, these are
like
samples, right?
TikTok shop affiliate before TikTok shop existed.
Literally. Yeah. And then so after GNC, my buddy Nick Sharma, who I grew up with, was like, hey, he's like, you know that you can make like a couple $1,000s a month, like doing these things called like Facebook ads. And I was like, a couple thousand a month? I was like, I can go out of poverty with a couple $1,000s a month. And so I ended up just blindly pitching like 80 people that I knew that were like 10 years older than me to see if I could run their meta ads for them. And turns out like this like apartment complex that I was currently living in at that time, let me run their meta ads. And the way that I described it is like, hey, I will set up landing pages where you guys have a problem with fill rate and AOV. Let me go and set up dynamic landers against like rich and affluent students.
Hold on. I didn't know this.
Please.
You're running Facebook ads for a luxury, was it a luxury apartment complex at least?
Yeah, it was a luxury apartment complex.
And that worked?
It worked tremendously. Their fill rate, so the category average, this is like a really weird statistic. The category average fill rate for an apartment complex should typically be about 95%. Most apartment complexes are not actually fully filled up. There's always a couple of free units. And so these guys were at 91%. And so what I told them is that I would help them fill that gap, also increase AOV. My only ask is that I would take a split of the delta. So I'm covering my costs in them scaling their business.
I didn't expect for us to get alpha for real estate people here.
This is like a lead campaign. Like you were getting them lead. Like how are you?
Literally, I was just running leads, and I would then do dynamic landers based off of like different ethnicities, and I would run like landing pages against people who speak Hindi, landing pages against people that were from other Asian countries. And I just like found this weird niche of like, hey, Boston is this like hub of like international, students. And I was able to just build landers that converted on those students. And so that then turned into one client that turned into 3 clients. And I built this like super weird niche of like, you have fill rate issues at your apartments in Boston. Like, let me run your ads. And so that was like literally how I paid for college was Meta. So that was kind of my background. But then at the exact same time, going through this like, crazy health journey, right? And I was originally drinking like 8 cups of coffee a day because I was a biochem major and I needed to memorize textbooks of information at that point. But I was also having like these crazy anxiety attacks. I would have like the worst sleep. I was constantly groggy. And one of my friends just went to Japan and he had like come back and he was like, dude, have you tried this thing called matcha? And I was like, oh yeah, I like seen it in like anime.
Was this before was this before like the hyper trend too? Was this the start of it?
Yeah.
Wow,
Yeah.
yeah.
Literally.
Because like now there's like a shortage of matcha.
Yes. Yeah. And so I started drinking matcha, fell in love with it. Like I went from drinking 8 cups of coffee a day to drinking 2 cups of matcha a day. And so I was like, I feel amazing. I feel fantastic. Why do more people not know about this product? And this was like, 10 years ago now. And there's like, there's 4 matcha companies in the United States. And I was like, great. My like life's dream is to work at one of these companies. So I applied to like Kenzo Tea, who like you guys know Steve Odell probably. Like I applied to Chacha Matcha. I applied to like, matcha.com. I applied to every single one of the businesses and ended up getting a job at Chacha Matcha. And that like started my career in like CPG. So moved to New York, had like $5,000 to my name. I could not afford to live in the city. My parents weren't rich enough to co-sign for me to live in New York. So I lived in Jersey, spent an hour and a half taking like bus, train, got to the office, and then just like networked my ass off. And so what I ended up doing was in my free time every day during lunch, I would slide into the DMs of like 4,000 founders. I basically just said, hey, I love what you're up to. Would love to, do a 20, 30-minute coffee. But, instead of just like some random coffee shop, like you want to do like the hottest coffee shop or the matcha shop in New York, which is Chacha Matcha. And like, that's how I built my initial
So
network.
Was Chacha Matcha at this point, was this like their only location was New York?
Yeah,
Or
so
did
we
they
had
have
3 locations at that time. We had 2 in New York, 1 in LA. And this is like when we had just launched our collab with like Virgil Abloh. We were doing collabs with like Kith, Nike, Versace, Louis Vuitton. And it was like the hottest store that you could go to, in the city at that point.
Okay, so let's fast forward a little bit. You're Chacha Matcha. Next is Nugs,
Yes.
right? And then you
Yes.
were still running your agency at that point. What did you have your
So I
agency in the
actually didn't even
background?
have the agency. No, so Nugs was, it was like peak COVID. COVID just started. Chacha had to shut down all their stores because COVID. And so I ended up going to this like plant-based chicken nugget company. Like that business blew up, right? Like this was like when you could just like, this is when Supreme was launching bricks on their .com and they were getting like, 14 rows on customer acquisition, and was at Nugs, helped scale that business, then moved to Health Aid. And so Health Aid was Coca-Cola had invested into that business at that point. They were kind of like stuck and stagnant on the digital side. And then I ended up joining that business, helped grow it as their head of digital and growth. And then at the tail end of my time at Health Aid, that's when I actually started my agency.
And that's when I met you.
Yes.
Was when you started your agency in Austin.
I got something I gotta ask though. Like when you were at Chacha Matcha, like you were like basically like tricking these guys to get the coffee chat like in your location, so like you could get business.
Quite literally, I walked across the street and took every coffee meeting. I did not have to travel once. And then every founder who was an early stage CPG founder at this time was like, yeah, I'll save $10 on a cup of matcha. So like, let me hang out with this kid.
Moving on. So Shray, we met in Austin. You're running your agency at this point, or you're in Nugs, which I think is an interesting thing to go into, but we don't have to talk about Nugs.
So,
And then when did you like go all in on the agency basically? When was that? When was the moment?
It was basically when I'm a super like de-risk guy. And so I think that typically like people think of like entrepreneurs as like, these like hyper risk takers. I also just see them as like very like calculated risk takers, where I did not quit and start my own thing until I was making 2 times my salary from my current day job. And so after Healthy got acquired, and I was able to pull in enough against my like day to day, I was like, cool, if I lose half of my clients I'll be able to, still feed myself sort of a situation. And so originally we started Good Peeps as a performance agency. So like we were doing Meta and Landers and retention marketing and influencer marketing. And we were like the master of none sort of a situation. Like if somebody was like, hey, do you like catch spit in your hands? I was like, oh yeah, like we're like world class at this. We actually got like the best, catching spit award of 2022 at that point. So we were just trying to get
That's going in the intro. That's going in the intro. Just so you know.
We're gonna clip farming out for this, right?
Yeah. So we did everything. But then what we ended up seeing was like, we were working with mostly food, beverage, supplement, alcohol companies. And all of those companies were obviously pushing really heavy on D2C. But then what you ended up seeing was that there was this huge shift from like the big like M&A guys and the big like investors where they didn't see D2C as a legitimate channel when they wanted to go and acquire those those businesses into their total business ecosystem. Because these big guys don't get D2C. Like to them, D2C just means, are you a big business on Amazon, right? Like 2 is these retailers started to blow up online, right? What you ended up seeing is that Instacart launched, DoorDash launched, Walmart had just launched their .com, Target had just launched their .com, and it was their fastest growing segment of revenue as their business. Like if you look at Walmart, like year over year, their foot traffic is up, right? I think about 10% from their public, shareholder letter, or their earnings call rather. But you saw that their .com had like doubled in sales. Instacart was like a massive like secret channel for our businesses. And what we ended up seeing is like, hey, all of a sudden, 25 to 35% of revenue for Target was coming from online. 25% of revenue from Walmart was coming from online. Instacart, we have brands doing multiple millions a month just through Instacart alone. And DoorDash was just launching their ad platform. So I was like, hey, there are 9 million meta agencies. There's 10 million retention agencies. And like, this is just like a commodity race to the bottom on pricing. And what ends up happening is like you acquire these customers, these brands stick with you, you blow them up, and then they end up firing you because they found somebody that could do it for half the price.
Just to tell people how crazy this is, Walmart's advertising online retail media business did $4.4 billion in 2025 alone, right? Roundel, which is Target's equivalent of that, by 2024 was doing 649 million. And that was like a year after launch. So like, it's just free money to these retailers, right? Like basically, and they love capturing additional margin. You said Instacart had just launched. Did you mean the ad network for Instacart just launched?
Yeah, the ad. So like I was one of the first 10 advertisers on Instacart when I was at Health Aid. This is where like we were like manually uploading Excel files to the Instacart team to go like help and go run ads at that point. Yeah. So as early as it gets. Oh, what's up, Zane?
So in terms of like retail media, you are like on Instacart, you're running ads on the Instacart kind of website to drive people to buy on Instacart. Are you doing any media where like you're trying to actually get them to buy inside the retailer, or you're trying to push only online sales?
So when you go and run ads on Instacart, somebody goes and adds something onto their cart on Instacart, that is actually fulfilled by somebody driving to a physical store and delivering it to your house. So it's awesome about what we do is that on Instacart and DoorDash, that shows up for the brand as in-store velocity. Whereas when I'm then advertising on Target and Walmart, I'm both advertising, like you said, on their .com business because there's such a large user base there. But a huge majority of these .com orders are buy online, pick up in store, which is then also driving the in-store velocities for those brands as well.
So I want to get a little tactical on Zane, just to kind of break it down for the audience too. So when you're a brand and you are trying to get into a retailer, it's a pain in the butt. You got to go through a broker network or a buyer. Yeah. There's a buyer for every category. Let's say you get in. What are the metrics that the buyer is going to look at, right? Shray, it's like what? Velocity, units sold per store per week. What else? Like give us some high level.
Margin, right? How profitable are we on those shoppers? And then the last bit is like, as your brand grows, how incremental is each of those SKUs to the total pie, right? Because some brands have this like infinite TAM scaling. Like you look at somebody like Olipop, every time they go and launch a new SKU, it's incremental sales for them because it's like, full audience expansion. Whereas like, maybe I always like shit on like adaptogenic cereals because like there's so many of these brands, but like nobody goes and nobody shops these products. they could have 15
So-
SKUs, but they do the same revenue as one.
So that's why it's harder to like scale a chocolate brand that's just selling better chocolate, because all you're doing is replacing chocolate. Like the retailer sees that as very little incrementality, but when you're doing net new things like better for you, that's where the value for the retailer is. But getting more detailed here, the reason why Shray is describing going to the physical store and buying something on the shelf, increasing velocity, that's valuable because that's the number one thing that those buyers are looking at.
Yeah. So like our business, what I say does is two things. Drives your units per store per week up, and it is the most measured and highest enterprise value driving marketing across your whole organization, right? Because more and more today on the CPG side, brands are they are just so overwhelmed by channel variety, right? Every 3 minutes, there's a new marketing channel. Even ChatGPT just launched ads, for retailers the other day, right? Like to TikTok Shop, to Amazon, to whatever have it be. But a lot of the time, they can't discern, is this a distraction against my core business, or is this helping me build my core business? And then two, on the retail side, there's so many walled gardens of information where like you go do a phenomenal, organic push or an influencer push. There's no one-to-one measurement of like, I did 1 million views on my last Instagram post. What did that do to actually help drive our retail velocities? Whereas like what we can do on our side is like everything that we do is measured within the walls of retail. And two, I have a direct last click ROAS such that I'm not spending on branding key phrases. I could directly attribute my sales to sales that are happening inside of the stores.
From what I understand from what you're saying, like one, these retailers are like, if you are going to launch in there and like, let's say there's a brand that's already in there and the people are just going to start buying from you instead of that brand, like it doesn't really change the game for them. Like, let's say like a customer is spending $100 in their total shopping cart. You come in, they're still leaving, spending $100. But if you offer something that was totally new where your brand is in there now, and now that shopper is leaving with $110 worth of stuff. So it's like, oh, wow, the Target or whatever retailer got an extra $10 out of that customer because you added something. That's really what they want. So that makes sense to me. In terms of Instacart, I find that really interesting because it's almost the way you described it. It's like you're getting Uber Eats for something from the grocery store. I think I've done it like once or twice. But yeah, like you're paying for that person to buy in the store. And Target, I would think, like the day it happens, the second it happens, they have no idea if it's going to a regular customer, Instacart driver, whatever it is. Like to them, it just looks like a sale, and like
A normal sale.
track it pretty well. So that's helping drive the retail velocity. What I also find interesting is almost like that person that's doing the purchase is also kind of becoming aware of the brand. Like the shopper is like, oh, what? I haven't heard of this one before. I have a bunch of people starts ordering it. It kind of makes an imprint on their mind. And then also if you're the customer on Instacart, you saw that product, you ended up buying, but it's almost like a new customer acquisition where next time maybe I use Instacart like 10% of the time when I'm feeling lazy.
Totally.
Next time I'm in the store, I might buy that product again because I discovered it through Instacart.
On Instacart.
So I see a lot of that synergy coming in. I think it's pretty cool because you're almost bringing like D2C stuff like attribution, ROAS to a retail environment. And I think we're just starting on people understanding like from this conversation, I'm starting to discover this stuff.
I think that what we can jump into is, Shray, one of the more interesting things about you is you work with some really cool brands, right? Yeah. And I'm not sure who you can talk about.
Yeah.
But like I think to really drive, so for the folks back home, Instacart retail media is very incremental, and to show just how incremental. Can Shray share anything about any brands that you're working with? Do you have any like?
Yeah, I can give you some context. So, I won't give exact dollars across the board. So, to give you context on the incrementality of kind of what we're up to, we in the last 12 months have done about $1.1 billion in retail sales for our brands, and that is on non-branded spend. So, for every person on Twitter who's like, "How much did you spend on brand?" That is all non-branded. So that means that we're doing, anywhere from 80 to 100 million a month in digital ad sales across these platforms. And to my understanding, outside of the big hold companies, we're one of the top spenders at all of Instacart. Outside of the hold companies at DoorDash, like the big Coke, Pepsi, P&G, all of those guys, we're one of the top spenders on DoorDash. We're official partners of Target, Walmart now. We're official partners of Criteo. To my understanding, we are, to my knowledge, the only company in the United States that's official partners of every digital retailer in the US. And so that gives us like a very unique perspective on kind of how we grow for our businesses. And we work on like a crazy like breadth and depth of businesses. So we work with like a lot of like the startups, let's call it like the sub $50 million, just got their first retailer, launching into, you know, kind of their first doors, let's call it.
Shray worked with Compai for a little bit too. Just putting that out there.
Yeah. We did Tone, or we're doing Tone with Kai Sinat. We've done W with Jake Paul. We've done Ketone IQ. We've done, you know, a lot of like, let's call it like the new and emerging businesses. We've done a lot of the mid-market businesses. Let's call it, you know, the 50 mil and up, not the $1 billion businesses, where you're talking about like, you know, Array, Oats Overnight, Sweet Loren's, Feastables, Bobby, Little Spoon, who's the largest launch in Target history, to Everyday Dose.
That was pretty nuts. Yeah.
And then down to, we also do a couple of the $1 billion plus size businesses. You know, we do the Ghost Energies, we do the, you know, we do As Seen on TV, like, you know, the original direct response marketers of, you know, As Seen on TV literally came up with the, you know, for 4 easy installments of, like, they came up with buy now, pay later, to a couple of other businesses that I literally cannot tell. So yeah.
You know, I'm going to ask this, like, it's obvious you have a ton of exposure to early stage CPG.
Yeah.
And our podcast is called What's Working.
Yeah.
So,
so
you know where this is going? What is working? And where, I guess, like, it'd be kind of cool to get into a second bit here about like, what is working? What are the trends? And where do you see opportunity? Like, is this protein thing legit? I know that's kind of like a year after. Is fiber the next protein?
Yeah. Yeah, I can answer that. Okay, let me try to see with answering this without breaking NDAs. Okay, what's working is, I think two of the things that you shouted out were spot on. GLP-1s have fundamentally shifted consumer buying intent. And even though you're not on a GLP-1, a lot of customers are now starting to eat like they're on a GLP-1, is like what I like to say, which is these guys and everybody's now shifting to higher protein, higher fiber, lower, simple carbs and higher complex carbs. And they're moving towards what I would call CPG 3.0. Like the way that this originally happened, or the way that the trends are kind of moving towards, is first version of CPG was like the Wonder Breads, the Doritos, the Cheetos of the world, where they simply were like, hey, here is a prepackaged food that you can eat now, and it's convenient, tastes amazing, and will literally crack out your brain. Version 2 was like what most big CPG brands are today, which is like, hey, we have taken away a lot of the artificial flavors, we've taken away a lot of the artificial, sweeteners, and we've done like healthier alternatives and swaps. You'll see that that's a lot of like low calorie, low minimal processing, whole grain, whole wheat. But like the downside to a lot of these businesses is that they are perceived as healthy, but like they still give you the same insulin response. They still are super highly processed. They're still mostly made from like
how do you feel
crop.
about like the fact that most of the CPG crop are like not scientists themselves? Like when you talk about like a lot, like I'm not naming anyone. Like I just feel like, Zane, you know what I'm talking about. Like a lot of the founders are more like, a lot of them are like affiliate guys.
Yeah, which causes like, I think most of CPG, what I would say is like, they're drop shippers, right? They find something, they add a cool like brand and package on it, and they make like an absolute shit product. And like, we luckily don't work on those businesses, but like a perfect example of a company I used to work with was like Chomps. Like Pete, the founder, has no connection to science whatsoever. He was like a personal trainer that was doing like real estate in Florida and Miami. But like he happened to make like one of the best health products in history. And he made that brand 10 plus years ago. And his bet was like, people don't want shit ingredients. People want low minimal process, ingredient panels, and they just want high protein.
Do you think
food.
So you don't think people need a science background?
Absolutely
to, like,
not.
succeed in CPG?
Yeah. And some of the best products that I've worked on are where the founders are non-technical major nerds. Like a perfect example is like I was the first advisor to join a company called Groons. It's like gummy bear vitamin company. And Chad has no scientific background whatsoever.
He's like from finance or something, right?
He came from finance. But what I would always say is like, think about it, like if you go back to my life story, like doctors were the people that kept me sick. It was the non-scientists, non-doctors that like made me healthy, right? It was just like normal, real food. And so my take is like the guys that just are the most obsessed and have like what I would say just applied common sense are typically the best founders in our space. But yeah, what I was getting to is like CPG 3.0, what's working is like you'll see there's this new era of like real food products and like real efficacious dosed supplements. And like that is where I think everything is going towards. Like a perfect like example of it is like sauce, right? For all intents and purposes, pasta sauce is the least quote unquote innovative category and product to be inside of. You probably don't even think about the pasta sauce that you ever eat. But what do those two do? Like, what do those two guys do?
Hold
like,
on. Before everyone
Yeah.
gets confused, when he says sauce, it's literally sauce with a Z.
brand.
So
Yes.
SAUZ, not sauce.
Yeah, not like do you have sauce, but like sauce, like SAUZ, is this amazingly branded product. So they took the playbook of CPG 2.0, where they made the branding fun, they made the brand identity awesome, they have this like very social forward, business, but then they took the 3.0 ingredient panel. Everything is organic, there's no seed oils, the flavors are super fun, the tomatoes are organic, the olive oil is organic, etc. And they've made, in my opinion, one of the best packages mixed with one of the best products. And so I think that what you're starting to see is like similar to D2C back in the day, where you could just launch something, and if you had the right unit economics on Meta, you could just go infinitely scale it. That doesn't happen anymore because CPMs are now just skyrocketing. You have to have a phenomenal product that actually works for your customers. We're just seeing that trend now shift into the retail space. And so that's kind of what we look for. Like when we're working with brands, we go, do they have the right people? Because the company's called Good Peeps. We can't work with them. 2 is like, do they have the right product? Because like nobody's asking for an adaptogenic cereal. And like, I refuse to support a business where they're just like making something that's like, perpetually making people sicker. And then 3 is like, do I think it has scale? Right. And like, so that's how we're kind of defining our
You heard it here,
brands.
guys. If you want to get rich, Shray just told you how.
I think with Groons, it's like if you're on TikTok Shop, like there's no way you haven't heard of it. Like it's just crushed on there. And kind of like to give examples to what you're saying, like phase 1 is almost like Coca-Cola, phase 2 is like Diet Coke, and phase 3 is almost like very different in terms of like Olipop, Groons. It's almost like you're taking those products and like it almost seems like a branding thing. Like we're talking about, like none of these guys have like a huge science background, but they took something boring. Like you've always had multivitamins, right? And like maybe Flintstone gummies were something kind of cool, but now Groons is like, it's really cool, right? It's like really cute. It's coming in like these packaging where it's like, you just tear it open and you know exactly how much to take that day. That seems like that's the meta now, especially on TikTok Shop. It's like a lot of really young people, and you need something that's like super bright and like Gen Z and just like really stands out. How do these brands also do well like in retail? Like TikTok Shop, it makes sense to me. They're not like nice and cutesy and whatever, but like a lot of these brands that you're seeing, like not only are doing well on TikTok Shop, but also doing well like on a shelf where it's just more difficult to get attention. How do you think these brands are really killing it when they're like going into shelf space and they're competing with like all these incumbents?
Yeah. So I actually have a hot take. I think that most CPG businesses should not even think about retail until they get to at least $50 million digitally. Why? It is a dogfight and it is a dirty game in retail. People are walking into your stores, literally flipping your product around so that they can't read your kind of, the front of your bag, and it shows your competitors. These other big dogs are constantly winning on price, are constantly winning on promotion, and they're constantly winning on SKU assortment from a variety and depth perspective. And so to me, the only way that you can combat this is kind of like 3 things. One is that you have such a massive digital presence that by the time somebody walks into a store, they go, oh yeah, I saw that on TikTok. Oh yeah, I saw that on Instagram. Oh yeah, one of my friends was talking about that because of a funny video they saw. So you've already like preempted them to purchase in a way. 2 is that you get extremely lucky and you simply innovate inside of a category that there has been no innovation. Like a perfect example of this is like, when was the last time you thought about like a Clorox wipe? But you use it every day, you never think about it, etc. We just kicked off with this brand called Biome.
Like the real life examples here.
Yeah, this is a like
That does
3.0.
look really different.
This looks
gonna-
amazing.
Are you going to send this podcast to the founder and be like, dude, just shouted you out?
I gave you this.
I just
No,
went out.
I'm a huge fan of the product because 1, the ingredients on this guy are extremely clean. 2, it literally smells like my gym because it's just eucalyptus oil in it as like the cleaning and disinfectant. And 3 is like the price is phenomenal. And so some of these brands do get extremely not lucky, but they take very calculated bets on like, hey, there's quite literally no one else thinking about launching a Clorox competitor. Let me go for it.
So,
and like
so what's
these things,
so if you're launching a new CPG brand, you have a product. What's the stack? Like, do you focus on Meta? Like, do you focus on Meta? Do you focus on TikTok? Like, what do you do?
I'm always a fan of like wherever you can market the best on is the channel that you should focus on first. Like we work with As Seen on TV. They do like majority TV ads. And to everybody in our space, they'll tell you that TV is dead. They've built a ridiculously successful business and continue to have a ridiculously successful business because
Is it the demographic that's really pushing it? Is it like older audience?
it's an older audience, but they know how to market on that channel is my big thing. It's like their marketing team knows how to use those platforms well. Like I have a buddy who's a lawyer in San Diego. The company is a 9-figure or on pace to be a 9-figure business this year. His number one traffic source is bench side ads, where like he literally is just like got into an accident or you got into this, call this number. And like that's his top channel versus like another business, like, you know, you look at somebody like, I don't know, True Classic Teas, they'll tell you that all day Meta's the future. So I always say it's not the channel, it's the marketer. And that's where you should triple down on is like, what are your marketers good at? And like you then can go and find and create the demo and audience wherever you are.
That makes sense. I also feel like in retail, like a lot of brands that, like you say, wait until you're 50 mil. Let's say they're like heavy. Let's say they're like food and beverage or like actual beverages. Like maybe retail makes more sense. What would be like the retailers that you would go into? What would be the retailers that you would probably stay away from? Like you said, it seems like a pretty like dodgy space. Retailers not paying you on time. You know, they're maybe not paying you at all. If they go bankrupt, you might be screwed. What would you like if you hit 50 mil and you're like, okay, these are retailers that I'm
totally.
But before you answer, I just want to say stories. Do you know the Woobles?
Is that the toy?
Yeah. They launched into what is that arts and crafts store?
Michael's Baits?
No. I'm just Googling it so I can get it for the pod.
Did they get totally like screwed?
Joann's. There you go. So they were like the largest vendor, and this is public knowledge now. They were like the largest vendor in Joann's, and basically Joann's did a restructuring. They're like, hey, we can pay off some of it, but you have to send us a lot more product because we're trying to restructure the company. And Woobles was like, sure, you're not, this is a decent deal. And like the Woobles was left like as one of the largest creditors in the bankruptcy. It's I just looked it up, $7 million owed.
Jesus Christ.
For Joann's. Shray, how do you avoid that? Like, what do you do?
I think it's like your relationship with the retailer and how you get in is the most important dynamic in each of these accounts. And like, obviously that type of stuff happens in like random specialty retail accounts. To be clear, that type of stuff does not happen in big box retailers. They would not be in business if they did that to brands.
So you wouldn't launch into a small retailer then?
I totally would. I actually would if the risk profile made sense. So like if I'm a supplement business and let's say that I launched, I don't know, I was the 958th creatine dummy launching in the space right now. The playbook is pretty simple, right? You go and launch into specialty retail, whichever specialty retailer that is.
You do it direct or using a broker? How would you recommend?
Pick your own adventure. A lot of brands know the retailers directly, or straight up, the retailers will reach out to these brands directly. And if you can't get in, then going through a broker is always a great thing, such that they are a reputable broker. Like the amount of brokers that are these like used car salesmen, where they will just like tell you like, hey, I could get you into Target with like 3,000 stores of 15 products to start. It is like so common in my space.
I will say though, there are brokers who like I have this guy. He's like old. He's been in it for like 30 years plus. Yeah. Plays golf with the VPs of like whatever, like CVS. And like he'll get you in everywhere. He's legit. He's one guy. And you're like, you really know all these people? Absolutely he does. And then there's also those brokers.
Yes, totally. So it's like and then like you were saying, the retail game is all about relationships. You will hear that phrase every 5 minutes in CPG. This whole industry is relationships because, like Isaac said, there are people that can just shoot one text message to the lead buyer at Target, and your brand is now in 3,000 stores with the best placement of all time. And so, if you can't get direct, you have to make sure you find an amazing broker. And I've just found that like actually these bigger brokers tend to be the better players at this point because they just have so much momentum and so much buying power with these retailers because they have 50 plus brands, etc. that, they'll tell you pretty straight up if they can get you in or not.
And they know how to deal with situations too, because I think the thing people don't understand about retail launch is you have to pay to play. Like the retailers are like billboards. They know it. They have all the leverage. They will charge you an arm and a leg to be inside of there.
Totally. Guys, that's what they're making the money on. It's not off the single sale all the time that off of that brand. But yeah.
I just want to get this one quote in. All of the inventory in retail stores is a consignment. Like that's another way to think about it. Like people don't even realize that, but like everything's on credit terms. They've already made their money before you buy it. It's all like it's all like on credit.
And I think that's something for D2C brands that they also really struggle to understand. Like it seems so cool to do some crazy rollout, go nationwide in Target, and then starting to understand the cash flow issues that come with being paid on net 30 or net 60. Like what do you recommend for brands like when they're doing this kind of like expansion? Like what should they be prepped for cash flow wise? Are they getting like you're recommending to them if they came to you for advice, you're recommending that they like raise a round of funding, they get some kind of financing that's based on those POs that are coming? Like how are you thinking about that? What would you do in your own position if you were a brand?
Yeah, I hate giving up equity. So I typically work with these debt facilities because when you're a debt provider, it's the easiest thing to underwrite in human history from a risk profile perspective, a retailer PO. And so what we actually push a lot of our brands to doing is go on terms of credit or debt with these different providers. I can name a bunch of them, but no free plugs kind of a thing. Just Google search it, you'll find it.
Just reach out to Shray. Just reach out to Shray if you want them.
Yeah. So a lot of the time, like in the last year, we've probably helped get our brands about like 60, 70 million of debt. To help them kind of
PG'd or this is only like it's only backed by the PO or are they like also taking
it's backed a lot by the PO or by the inventory. The thing is that typically credit providers see D2C businesses as a lot more risky than retail businesses because while you are not guaranteed velocity at retail, there is still a base assumption of what velocity could be. If your Meta account gets shut off tomorrow, you have $0 of sales going. So it is, a de-risked investment on that side. We have done it.
Isaac and I always say D2C brands are broke, man. Like they're just it's such a risky business. They're so likely to go out of business. And what you said about Meta is so true. But
did you guys see the news about Meta yesterday removing credit cards?
Like, I think it's over a certain size, to my understanding, is like once you've hit
every group chat, man, all of a sudden, all at once, Meta's getting rid of credit cards. I'm like, what's going on?
Yeah. That's because all the group chats Isaac are in with all the 9-figure D2C businesses, and they're getting pushed into invoice at that point. Versus I know for a fact that you're still fine on credit card with Meta for now when you're like a smaller spender at that point. But to go back to your question, I'm like, what's the playbook, right? I can give you 3 playbooks really simply because we get asked this the most because we do subs, we do bev, we do, every kind of derivative. It's like, if you're a supplement business, go where the freaky nerds are first and then go to the broader customer demo profiles. So I always love to like test and validate my brand because reminder, like when you launch into retail, it's not just like, do you have the right brand and the right product? Do you have the right price? Do you have the right size? Do you have the right format? Do you have the right number of servings? Do you have the right flavors, right? Like those are all things that you can't test at Walmart because like Walmart is going to take such a big bet on you and put you everywhere. You can only do that once. And so my favorite thing for like a supplement business, for example, is like go launch in GNC, go launch in Vitamin Shop. The consumers that shop there have no problem buying better for you products. 2, they are the weirdos of the space in terms of like, they are the health nuts. If you can't win there, you will not be able to win kind of beyond that point. And then you start moving up. You then go into the natural shopper where you go into your Whole Foods, you go into your Sprouts, you go into your natural grocers, you go into your Erewhon, and then you push up to mass where you're going into a Target, into a Walmart, and then you're going into like club, like a Costco or a Sam's Club. And then in between there, as you then get partnerships with Kroger or Albertsons or Meijer or Publix or whatever have it be, you kind of build it off of that. And so when you're a supplement business, to me, what I've seen is like that's the best way to go about it. When you're a beverage company, though, like it's a little bit of a different playbook because beverages, like you have to hit a scale very quickly because if you have a great idea, everyone's going to copy you very quickly. And
Breeze.
so you have, yeah.
Breeze is a great example.
Yeah. Oh, we work with Breeze. So like that makes things easy as well, where it's like everyone will copy you very quickly, right? At the moment that they see that you have a great idea. And so you are actually forced to grow a lot faster than you typically would because you get too big too quick or too slow. Look what happened in the sparkling water set. Every single sparkling water brand got killed the moment Bubbly launched with Pepsi because Pepsi's like, dude, rather than acquiring a business like this, we get the cheapest cans in the United States. We are the best priced water. We have the best manufacturing. And guess what? We already own all the shelf space. So we can just go and flood that. And so when like one of my beverage brands are launching, my thing is like, hey, yes, still test and optimize and validate in channels like Sprouts and in channels like Whole Foods. But it is your job, such that you have the right amount of brand awareness and marketing to push as quick as you can into the Targets, the Walmarts, the Sprouts, et cetera, of the world. Once you've like tested, validated, got great pricing, got great margin, push it as fast as you can.
Question for you off of what you're saying. So why do you think those clubs are doing so well? Things like Sam's Club, Costco. Why do you think retailers, like I guess Target would be a good example, are struggling? Is it just the price point? Is it the economy is bad?
Yeah,
People are looking
and
for
so
deals?
Target on this podcast, Shray. Like we need that as a voice clip, and we're gonna go spread it on the internet.
Well, it's kind of simple. The reason that Costco and Sam's Club are killing it is because these retailers have done a great job of not only being a value play, but also being a discovery platform, right? The Costco CEO says this all the time. He just wants to make a 14% margin on everything sold. And so they just say, hey, if you're a brand you want to sell here, this is what profit we need to make. We will try out, a bunch of brands. And if you hit it, you stick. And if not, no hard feelings. And so I think that like there is this like fallacy of like these big chain retailers were like, once you've, hit every single step of the playing game, you could then go into these big box retailers. Whereas like I've seen brands launch directly with Costco because one, nobody knows this. The average Costco shopper makes over $120,000 a year. And two is like, they're some of the highest LTV consumers.
Isn't that the highest, like highest income per average consumer set in all of CPG? Like Target is
them
less.
and Whole Foods.
Whole Foods, yeah. Everyone thinks it's like Target, but no, it's like Costco.
It's Costco. And like everyone sees Costco as like big bad wolf, but like we see it as like one of the most efficient customer acquisition tools in human history. Whereas like somebody like Target's not actually having a problem with growth. It's just that they are very similar to Walmart, where you guys probably fall into this. People just don't want to leave their house as often. And like people also
that was a real personal.
yeah.
Like you and Isaac
Calling me,
calling
me a homebody over here.
Yeah. People don't want to go out. Two, people live more and more in cities where like they don't have cars. They don't want to lug, 50 pounds of groceries to their houses. And so what you'll see is like both Target and Walmart, their biggest growth channels this year were .com. Like more and more people are just buying from their .com businesses because they like Target. They love the brand of Target. They love Walmart. They love the product assortment at Walmart. They just simply don't want to spend 45 minutes to 2 hours getting their groceries and coming back. And so that's literally why my company exists, is like people are more homebodied. People are moving into larger metropolitan cities. And like, call me crazy. Like if I'm working all day, the last thing that I want to do is spend another 2 hours waiting in line, waiting in traffic, seeing things are out of stock, having to go to multiple stores. I can just get everything delivered to my house in under an hour or less. So that's just kind of the big shift, is like Amazon really has made it so that you can go, like you'll go buy anything on Amazon because it'll come tomorrow. These retailers have now made it where you can get anything delivered to your house in a couple of hours. And it's often even faster to just do delivery than it is to even go to the physical store itself.
Totally makes sense. Like here in New York and probably somewhere in LA, like the amount that people have been spending on DoorDash has just been going, like I think it's like peaking now. Even people who aren't like super high income, even though you have like these fees, like New York just started raising the fees because like they want to give these workers a good paying wage. you have tips, you have everything that comes along with that. And people who even like make like 60, 80,000 will get like a good portion of their meals delivered. Now it's starting to become more groceries. Like everything is just so convenience based. What do you think is going to be like the winners, like due to that shift of like people wanting something quickly? They're going to want something that's like easily delivered. Are there certain brands that are going to win? Are there certain brands that are just like they're not set up for that, or they're not thinking that like, hey, this shift is going to happen towards like delivery purchases?
Yeah. Convenience format products continue to just kill. Like Instacart launched their top 75 brand list on the emerging brand list this like couple months ago. 7 of those brands were our clients. And you'll see that the number 1 brand on that list is Nuri, the protein shake that like I'm sure you guys have all had or have seen at least. 30 grams of protein, 2 grams of sugar. You could kill it in 5 seconds. And like, I don't have to get, a bunch of protein powder, mix it.
So
forget
like
about,
RTD heavy that's winning on like the convenience delivery plans.
The number 2 brand on that was one of our clients, Oats Overnight. All I have to do is throw some water into a bottle, and the next morning I have my breakfast. But then the cooler part of it is like, it's just real food inside of that. It's literally oatmeal, it's some protein powder, some fiber, call it a day. So like these like convenient real food products, I think, are the next wave, where it's like everybody wants to eat healthier. They know what's good for them. If you're able to deliver it in a form that makes sense and is like easy, and I don't have to spend, more than 10, 20% versus what I'm currently paying for something, I'll easily do that. Like one of our other brands that I'm like extremely bullish on is this company called Food Nerd. Like fun fact, most baby puffs in the United States is made out of just wheat. And so like we're essentially like drugging our kids at the age of like 1 or 2, where like we're just getting these crazy sugar highs and they're just getting like, like green labeled. Yeah, literally. And just like, zoinking them out. And like what you'll see is like, you read the ingredient label on that. It says like, with whole foods and vegetables and fruits. The first ingredient is wheat. The second ingredient is sugar. And they just put like a little bit of like powdered spinach, powdered whatever. And it's like $8 a bottle because it just looks really cute. Versus like Food Nerd, what they're doing is like their product is cold plasma chain. Basically just desiccated whole fruits, whole veggies, sprouted seeds, and that's it. And so it's free of grains, free of oils, and it's literally just fruits in a bag that your kid can eat, and it literally will reduce their inflammation. So to me, it's like what's working or what's about to work is like these brands, or the brands like, tallow based brands, or these like, fully efficacious backed supplement businesses. It's like depth led organizations versus just like repackaging, drop shipping CPG businesses. Like everybody knows that the food system is inherently broken. And so consumers are getting smarter on a day-to-day basis. And so the brands that can actually just deliver like real efficacious, not unhealthy, and not like $80 a serving type food is just like going to win, in my opinion, in this like next era.
And there you have it, folks. That's how you get rich.
Shray, thank you so much for coming on, man. We're coming up on time. I feel like from this conversation, I went from not even knowing what retail media is to actually understanding a good amount about it and understanding how D2C kind of fits in, some of the mistakes people are making when they're trying to make that transition. Last question for you. If people want to learn more about you, they want to learn more about the agency, where can they find you? What are the social media links? Hit us.
Yeah, so we suck at social media, to be clear. So go to our website. It's thepeeps.co. Right now we have about a 600 brand wait list. So apologies if I don't respond to your emails. If you know one of these 2 guys, you can intro us directly, or like the kings of like, you need to know a peep to work with Good Peeps. 2 is that you could see us on LinkedIn. We're everywhere there, just Good Peeps. And then my Instagram is just Shray VJ. And you can find me there.
Sweet, man. Thank you so much for hopping on, man. That was a crazy.
I think if you are thinking of going to CPG or launching, this is the episode to listen to. It will literally make you rich. Watch it.